Check it out, guys. We're going to revisit the lost art of using the brake lathe today. All right, first things first is this machine is set up for drums. So I need to put the other head on it. Make sure that's clean. All right, and I'm going to run this out to make space for the rotor. Oh no, I don't need it. You're good. Thank you. Okay, the shaft is almost all the way out, so I'm going to run this shaft inward just to dimensionally set up the machine. And it's locked down. I want to install the cones that best fit the races that are in here. So that's a good one there. I'll use that cone. And that's my cone for the smaller race. Spacer. Another spacer. I should mention that the shaft of this lathe is reverse threaded on the end. Did you notice how I didn't tighten that up very much? The piece that I'm installing now is effectively a giant rubber band with lead or steel embedded into it, and it clips onto itself to secure itself to the rotor. This thing is designed to arrest and absorb any vibrations so the rotor can't start to make harmonic noises or chatter, so we say, which will make it vibrate, and that will affect the quality of the cut. After adjusting that blade for clearance, and no, I did not tap the bit, what I'm going to do is run the arm of the lathe in towards the center of the rotor and turn the bits in until they barely make contact. I'm then going to manually run the machine outwards and cut away the lip that's on the edge of the rotor. I have found that failing to perform this little procedure can result in the rotor and the bit binding up at the very end and causing the bit to jam itself into the rotor and dig a deep groove into it, and that is bad. Remember the part where I forgot to tighten down the chuck all the way? This is what happened. No damage occurred. I just felt like it was my first day again. I am manually cranking in the arm of the lathe because I want to start my cut at the most inboard point that I can. The bit on this side of the rotor is going to overhang past the rotor face because that face is not as wide as this side of the rotor. So because of that, I'm going to use the front side of the rotor to gauge my depth. You can see here where the bit went off of the edge a little bit. I just turned the inboard bit in about 0.02 and then zeroed the indicator to measure how deep my next cut is going to be. I'll do the same for the outboard side bit. With the lathe set up, I'm ready to begin the first cut on high speed. The lathe arm is now automatically going to retract towards the edge of the rotor, pulling the cutting bits along with it. We can see here the lathe making a new cut, going over my scratch cuts, and producing a finished surface. Almost. Let's watch the rest of this side on high speed, otherwise it'll take too long. We can see here the first cut on this side looks pretty good, but over here on the front we missed a lot. With the lathe arm transmission lever placed in neutral, I'll manually crank this lathe head back in towards the center, and I'll adjust the bits in on both sides a few more thousandths to prepare for another cut. I'm also going to do this next cut in high speed, and I'm referring to the speed of the lathe, not the speed of the camera that I'm going to use next. But let's fast forward. And we didn't quite get it all this time, so let's set it up again for one more fast pass. Say that 5 times fast. I'm turning the bits in a couple more thousandths, and you'll notice that I'm cutting both sides even though the inboard side has been all the way smoothed. I do that to maintain pressure on both sides of the rotor. That ensures that the rotor remains true as it's running. And here comes the good part. Well, maybe not, but I thought it was cool. Let's shut the lathe down for closer inspection of both cuts. And it looks like the surface is all the way done on this side. I'm happy with this. Second side looks pretty good. I think I'll start it back up and prepare for the slow cut. Next, I'm turning the bits in 1, maybe 1¼ notches, locking them back down, and then I'm going to prepare for the slow cut. This is the finish cut on the rotor. You'll notice before I was pulling the lever back, I now just pushed it forward, and the lathe is turning much slower in this setting. This is going to ensure that all the peaks and valleys within the cut are evened out for a nice, true, smooth surface. At the snap of my fingers, you will awake. All right, enough of that. Let's check this finished cut. It's looking pretty good, says I. Nice and shiny. Shiny on both sides. And I like it, and this rotor is done. Okay, now I just need to remove the big rubber band, unbolt this rotor from the lathe, and then set up the next one. Remember, it's left-handed threads. By the way, I mentioned rotor vibrations and harmonics earlier. I'd like to point out that 2 of these spacers that I had installed also contain a giant piece of rubber around them, also designed to absorb any kind of vibrations or harmonics. The setup process for the second rotor is super easy because the lathe is already measured and set up for its dimensions. except for the cutting bits. I have to remember to back the bits off before I set up for another cut. Gravity. Medic! Just like last time, I'm going to manually cut away the lip that's worn into the edge of the rotor. It should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. One should be extremely careful to not touch the bits and get your fingers stuck in the lathe. Because when the lathe is done with it, you will no longer, or I will no longer have fingers. I've turned both bits in a few thousandths, locked them down, and zeroed both of the indicators. I'm now going to do the first fast pass cut on this rotor. Let's go ahead and speed up this cut, but sorry, there's going to be no elevator music this time. Slowing it down, and from this view, we have an excellent indicator as to just how much run out was in this rotor. Okay, almost. I think I can get this done in one more fast pass. And then I will do my slow pass. Looking pretty good on that side too. And all the way down to the rust. I'll do 2 more notches. This last pass should be taking care of that low spot, and then I'll do a finish cut on this rotor, and both of them will be done. Ooh, almost. There's still a low spot, right there. I'm not going to do another fast cut. I'm just going to hit this with the slow cut. That should get rid of that one. I'll just do this slow cut on this side at 2 more notches instead of just the 1. 1 notch. 2 notches, all right. This next cut is going to take a while, so we're going back to the elevator music. Yep. Nice. All that's left now is to give these things a quick rinse with some brake clean, and I can give them back to the customer. I will also mention that I'm not going to go to the parts washer and clean all the grease out of the bores where the bearings ride. The customer is doing his own brake job, and he just brought these rotors to machine them. He told me not even to worry about the bearing races because he's going to clean those out later and then repack those races. Therefore, any contaminants that I introduced will not matter. Alright everybody, that's going to wrap it up for this one. I'm sure you guys noticed that my format and editing was slightly different this time around, and I'm interested in your feedback. So please, if you could, let me know in the comment section down below. That being said, thank you guys for watching, and as always, don't forget, have a great day.